So in this demo, we'll use a new permission or a warp permission, and we'll show how we can set that permission in the permissions file and how we can check that permission in our code. So the way I'm going to do that initially is create a new instance of main, and we'll have a main here. And then on main, I'll add a method called makeItSo. We'll pass this an integer, and that's going to be the warp that we want to set to. And if I go and create this method here, so this will be warp. Then inside here, I want to get a reference to my security manager. So equals system.getSecurityManager. If this is not null, then I'm going to check the warp. So I'm going to say security-manager.checkPermission, and we need to pass this a new warp permission, which we haven't written yet. So let's just go and fill in the blanks here. And our warp permission will take the name that we're trying to check. So this will be max warp and the value to check of the warp. So this is whatever values pass into us. So here I want to say string. So here I want to say string dot value of warp. So remember that the action we're passing in here is a string value. And then we can create our warp permission class. So the string here is the name, and this string is the action. So for this class, we're going to extend basic permission. And then inside our constructor, we'll call the super, we'll call the base class constructor, and we'll pass up name and action. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say warp equals integer.parseInt action, and store that in a field on the class. So we've seen the implies method that was on the slides. So here we just need to compare the warp. I'm going to make one change here. I'm going to add an equal sign. So if the warp that we've been given is greater than or equal to the one we've been asked for, then we're good to go. We'll allow that. Otherwise we'll fail the call. So back over here in main Java now, we check the warp permission. If this fails, remember, it will throw an exception. If it succeeds, let's just print out a message saying something like warp now set to, and we'll give it the warp value. Now I can build this code. If I go to the command prompt, then I can run this code without a security manager, and it sets whatever warp we pass in. So we're asking for 8, and it's going to set the value to 8. If I try and run the code with a security manager, then it fails, because I'm asking for this warp permission, and the warp permission hasn't been set. So we need to go and edit a policy file. So here, I've got a file called my.policy, and we add, as we've done before, a grant block. And in this grant block, we add a permission. And the permission is for com.pluralsight.warp permission. We're asking for max warp, and we want to give it the value of 8. So if I save that file, go back to my command prompt, and then run this demo with that policy file set. This is a common error I make whenever editing policy files. I've left the semicolon off the end here. So save the file again, now run the code, and it works okay. So the warp is set to 8, and we're allowed to access this warp. If I try and change that to 7 and save the file and run the code, it fails. I've asked for 8, I'm only allowed 7. And if I set this to 9 and run the code, then it succeeds. So again, the implies here, I've asked for 9, that implies 8 is okay. I've asked for 7, that implies 8 isn't okay.